Some stories begin long before we are born. Some family stories sound like films, and this one actually is. It began in 1921 in Batumi. Two young people, a ship waiting, and a priest who said no in a country that was about to be swollen by a Soviet Union. Gayannée Kedia, a researcher of the human mind, working between psychology and neuroscience in Austria.
My grandparents were born in Georgia. They grew up in Georgia, and my great grandfather, so the father of my grandfather, was a chief of the police in one of the regions of Georgia, in Mengreli. And one of the person he tried to arrest, and he arrested him once, was Stalin, because at this time Stalin was working already for the Bolsheviks, and he was robbing banks. And this is how he was bringing money to the Bolsheviks, and he was robbing banks in Georgia. So my great grandfather, as the chief of the police, had this mission to arrest him. And he arrested him once. I think he sent him to Siberia, but Stalin escaped and came back. And so when in 1921, the Bolsheviks invaded Georgia, they were in great dangers. And that's a reason why I think in a day they left everything behind them. They just took the money that they had, they just took the jewelry they had, a few photos, and they took a ship in Batumi, and they flew just like that.
So they got married in Batumi, right? As I know, because they wanted this kind of ritual to be on a Georgian, like in a Georgian place and city, right?
It's a very romantic story because they were engaged. They were 20 years old and they were engaged, and they didn't know when they would come back to Georgia. And so just before getting on the ship, they said, let's get married here on Georgian soil. But at the time, it was very difficult to find a priest because the Bolsheviks were already there and they were preventing religion and religious activities. So they found one, and the priest said, no, I'm not doing that. This is too dangerous. I don't want to marry you. So they took a gun and they put it on the priest, and they say, now you're going to marry us. And this is how it happened. Yeah, exactly. So their lives were really movies. It's amazing. This is one of the stories of many stories that I have heard growing up, and that made their lives so special, and also that made Georgia for me so special. It was a bit this place where all these amazing things would happen. And
Yeah, you once said that Georgia for you is kind of like a lost paradise. So how this idea lived in your childhood?
yeah, I grew up, I was close from my grandmother. We were actually for some time living in the same building, so I would spend a lot of time with her. And I was her first grandchild, so I was a bit like one of the most wonderful things that could happen to her. She loved me very much, and she would tell a lot of these stories, and her apartment was full of Georgian objects and photos, and the stories really were with me growing up and with my sister. And I mean, they spent their childhood there in Georgia. Childhood is a very special time, and I think they had a happy childhood. So then it was robbed from them. They had to leave everything, and then they had a very interesting life, but also at times difficult lives. So Georgia was the most beautiful place, It was a beautiful country. The culture was beautiful. The food was amazing, and the food is amazing, and the country is beautiful. So yeah, we grew up with all these images, and because of communism, my grandmother could never go back to Georgia. She's never been there because when the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, she was already 88 years old, so she was very old already. She lived up to 99, so she died in 2000. She really lived the whole century, but she was never able to go back, and as a consequence, yeah, it was there was no more most beautiful place in the world than Georgia for her, and this is what I heard my whole childhood.
Yeah, because it kind of feels like she wanted also you to be connected to that place that she loved so much. So, did you feel connected to a place you have never seen in that time?
Very much. Also, my name is Gayannée Kedia, so it's a very unusual, yeah, it's very unusual name in France. So people often ask me where is it coming from, and um, I remember when I was in school, we were three Georgian kids in my class. Yeah, that was really funny, and we all had impossible names to pronounce for French people, and so the teacher would always say, "The Georgian kids, come here, do this and do that." And I always experienced this as a kid as, a little bit of a treasure. Like I had this Georgian identity. I was not just French, I was half Georgian, and I experienced it as a richness, as something that was very precious and rare. So I feel very connected to this history, yes, and to this origin.
Today, a lot of people struggle to focus and with focus. So, why is that happening now? Because of the environment, or like what shifted and changed?
So I believe that it's always been hard to focus. Focus is inherently effortful. And so each time you have to make an effort, it will be hard, and part of your brain will ask itself, do we really want to do that? Because our brain, on the one hand, tries to enable us to thrive and survive, but on the other hand, it also tries to reduce the energy that we put in what we are doing. So each time we're making an effort, we're also kind of negotiating with ourselves if we really want to make that effort. And it's always been hard to focus. I remember when I was a kid, we didn't have as many electronic devices as today. There were no social media. I mean, we had TV, and I watched a lot of TV as a kid. But yet it was hard to sit down and do my homework, for example. And I'm sure that even before TV, people were struggling to do their homework and to write and do the tax return and whatever what we have to do that can feel hard. But what's happening lately is that we have the smartest people on the planet who are working very hard at distracting us. Who work at companies like TikTok and Instagram and Twitter or X, and so us going to that with our brains the way they are, is a bit like us going to a gunfight with a knife, right? I mean, we these algorithms are really made in such a way to give us exactly what's going to distract us.
And in Georgian, there is a like saying that tell me who your friend is and I'll tell you who you are. So that's kind of the people we surround ourselves with kind of have really a big effect and influence on us. Like if they act bad and there are like 10 people around you and they want to do something, you will want to do that just to belong. So like I think we have this wish to belong in the society, in a group, and that's why we do something that maybe we would never think of in other day or if we were alone. So
Absolutely, we want to belong and we learn from others. This is what is very specific to the human species, is that we're a species that learns a lot from observing other people. And we learn very quick. That's also what's really fascinating about human beings, is that we can learn in one trial, in one time, which an AI, for example, cannot do. So we still have something that the AI cannot do. But a human being can learn in just observing once another person doing things, and and this is just part of who we are, and this is absolutely true. Like the people you surround yourself will determine who you are. I care deeply about science. I'm a science enthusiast. I believe that science is a fantastic way to understand the world. It's I don't believe that it's always well practiced. There are conditions to science that sometimes don't make the science endeavor not as good as it should be. I think it's also a world that can be hard on scientists. And I think my purpose in life is to participate to the creation of good science, of a useful science, also a science that brings happiness to humanity, that doesn't destroy it. And in the support of scientists who want to do good work. I think this is really what I care about.